seeing as though you've touched on that with Manchester United. Now, the Jadon Sancho situation aside, which we'll get to, in terms of what we saw at the weekend in that 1-0 win over Burnley with Bruno Fernandes scoring the only goal of the game, are there some positive signs that we can take away going forward for Manchester United?
I think a win is always positive. Remember setting this game up. Everybody everywhere, not just here at ESPN, but I'm sure everywhere. I mean, this is the biggest game of the season already this early. We're talking about Manchester United, who's had a very good season last year, who got themselves to Europe, and we're talking 6-game away at Turf Moor, and this is the biggest game. And it was, because if they even drew there, I think, the talk would have been different. So in a moment like this, when a team struggles so much on and off the pitch, and there are questions being asked, not just about the players, but also about a manager who up until this point, we've all pretty much raved about. I think these 3 points can go a long way, because I think you get a moment of quietness. The schedule in terms of Premier League, it's not horrible. Last time I checked, I don't have it in front of me. So I still think it's possible, because quite frankly, I don't think anyone is firing on all cylinders. So I think that there's always, and this is a little bit from, thinking as a player, and the coaches will say that, and everybody else will say, well, that's just the coach, coaches speak. But yeah, they're not that far away. If they get some key players back one at a time, very, very big. You almost forget about how it happened. You really do, Kay. Big 3 points. One issue above everything else. I'll tell you, the biggest worry for me is that I think that this team looks spent. That's my issue, bigger than anything else. Jadon Sancho situation, Rashford not playing. I just think I don't know what they did in the preseason, but this is not the first game. This team to me looks physically spent, and it's too early for us to talk about that.
So is that a case of those players that were delivering last year in that period where Manchester United seemed to be clicking and it seemed to be working under Ten Hag, not being able to recreate that form so far this season?
Yes. I mean, it's quite simple. Again, could be part of preseason, could be that their, travels caused them more than others. I mean, everybody has traveled, I suppose, and they were here in the United States, looked decent against Arsenal, if you remember, in that. And so I don't know, subsequently what happened, but just physically when you watch Manchester United, I mean, Casemiro, I think, we all felt that, I mean, he's not going to give you 100%, the way he did, a few years back, but he's not being protected. There's not enough players around him that can help him a little bit in these early times. I think going forward, I don't know how much that's going to change. And then some other issues, I mean, maybe the players that I think you and I have talked about a little bit, so many shows I can't remember, but choosing some of the players that he knows may have been an issue, right? Some of the Dutch players or players that played for him at Ajax, and I just maybe they weren't at the level of Premier League to begin with.
There's some debate being going on back in England. Darren Bent said that Rashford wasn't world class due to his inconsistency. Is that a hot take for you? Do you see him as a world class player or not?
I mean, last season he showed that he can be. Again, a definition of a world class is, I think he's up there.
I think a good way to define a world class player is if they would start in any team they're in. Do you not think that would be the right way to define if you're world class?
I mean, look, he plays on the left, can play on the right, but I mean, you can't tell me, it all depends on the environment. Look, I mean, he's had to play in such a negative environment for such a long time. That's not easy for any player. As a young player that we all know that is capable of, right? So if for the last 3, 4, 5 years, aside from injuries, which are important to him, but I mean, he showed glimpses. When he's on. But you're always surrounded by this incredible negativity of changing coaches, terrible ownership, this massive Manchester United name that expects you to deliver, even though everybody understands that it's not a great team. So you telling me that the glimpses that he showed, some of it we saw for long periods of time last season, if you put him on Real Madrid instead of Rodrigo, are you telling me that Rodrigo is that much better than Rashford? I don't see it. I mean, Rodrigo just started showing that. Are you telling me that it's impossible for him to be at Barcelona when Gavi plays there, right? I mean, I think he could at his best. So I just named two. I mean, look, Bayern Munich, as we see it right now.
And you think he'd consistently deliver then if he was in one of these elite teams?
Well, I don't see why not. I just think that good players surrounded by very good players, like like a Manchester City, right? I mean, he's a different player than Grealish, but again, we've seen Jeremy Doku twice, and great. I mean, adapted really, really nice, and I've seen him in Ligue 1 and all that. But are we here sitting and saying that he wouldn't be able to function in Manchester City on that side? I think he could. So okay. I think the consistency and the confidence, and just for once in his career to kind of say, look, I don't want to be hearing about Anthony off the pitch. I don't want to be hearing about Rashford off the pitch. I don't want to hear about Glazers. I don't want to hear about a new manager coming every 4 or 5 months. I don't know if I would say that he couldn't do well in a positive environment. I've seen enough to know that he can score goals. He's got the pace to give you so much, right? He's a bright young player.
Do you have a definition of world class?
Yes, Messi, Ronaldo, the one that, world class. There's only, the top is the top. And everything else for me is below. And it's the easiest way. So not to
players who constantly and consistently deliver every week.
Yeah, and win trophies all the time, no matter where they go.
I've just because you mentioned it, and just to let you know, they do have Man City coming up at the end of October, Manchester United. But in terms of the Premier League, they're at home to Crystal Palace in the Premier League. They're at home to Brentford. They're away to Sheffield United, and there's 2 Champions League games in between those as well. And this is all before they face Manchester City. These winnable games for them, games they must win.
Absolutely. That's what I mentioned. I thank you very much for reminding me, because I know the schedule wasn't formidable, and that started with a game against Burnley. So yes, this is all the excuses go out the window in these next 2 or 3 games, no matter who's there, who's coming back. I mean, that's still there's 4 or 5, I'm not going to call them world-class players, but that next level, the second or third level of players that at any given moment can change the game. So absolutely, this is where they have to make a stand and stay up with the likes of Liverpool, Arsenal, Villa. I mean, those are not special teams as we see it just yet. I mean, it's up for grabs there. I mean, we're looking at this and we're saying, oh, Arsenal this, Arsenal that. Well, Declan Rice now out. Who knows for how long? Martinelli's not there. Trossard may miss a game or 2. Has already missed 1. So yeah, I think that with a little bit of positivity from Manchester United, if they go on the run of 2 or 3 games, they're right up there.
All right. Well, we'll keep our eye on that, obviously, here on PL Express. Just to end then, what are you making of this whole situation between Ten Hag and Jadon Sancho, this standoff that's happening, where we're even seeing the PFA obviously offering their services to try and mediate this situation? It's obviously gone to that extent.
I don't really understand it. I don't understand, the manager, and I truly don't understand the player. I mean, okay, from everything that we know, Jadon Sancho could just easily apologize, right? If it's not happening, I think I just always have that feeling when something like this goes on with a young player. I mean, the manager should kind of extend his hand to some degree, because if it's just down to, no, he's not doing it because of what he said and he doesn't want to apologize, there has to be something more to it that we don't know it. Because at some stage, a great manager will find a way, and he's got to be the bigger man. If it's just that, and part of me doesn't believe in that, there has to be something more, because I think of Ten Hag as a good enough manager that will go to that player and say, no, this is not about your apology, which I fully think is the case. This is not about the apology. I don't care if you apologize or not. I'm a bigger man than this, but you have to give me a lot more. the level in training and in the games is unbecoming of a Manchester United player.